And welcome everyone to this month's Intentional Success webinar. I'm Tom Simpson. We're going to talk about the new core competencies for live event companies. And basically, we learned a lot of stuff the past couple of years. It's a recurring theme, but I'm trying today to kind of consolidate all of those major lessons and share them, and so that we can start working on all of these things going forward. So this will be a fun one. There's a lot of information here, so I apologize. I'm a little bit of a fire hose sometimes, and today will be no exception. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tom Simpson. I work with the owners and management teams for companies exclusively in the professional live event space. We help with decision-making, strategy, processes, marketing. Basically, it's soup to nuts. Everything that's part of running your business is something that I touch and I get involved with, and I'm very, very familiar with what you do. Been in this industry for nigh on 40 years now. So a lot of arcane knowledge in here, but there's also a lot of really relevant stuff because I work with 20 different companies every single week. So if you're new, welcome. Obviously, we are being recorded. This will be posted on the replay page right after this event is over. If you have the link to that, you'll be able to access it in the next, within an hour of after we're done. If you don't have the link, wait until 5 o'clock Central Time. You'll get an email with that link. Save it. The replay is always there, but that'll give you access to it for the next month until we put another one up. So please use the chat, introduce yourself, say hi to everybody, let them know where you're from. If you just happen to be in the middle of something and need to have a challenge and want some help, I've seen people ask for it and get help there. So don't hesitate to network and reach out. It won't bother me one bit. However, questions, I love questions, and questions don't bother me either, but please post questions in the Q&A dialogue, and then I'll be sure to see them there and I will definitely respond to them. So let's see. Somebody says chat disables. I have no idea what that means. So is the chat not working? I have no control over it. I'm moving on. All right, with our topic. Okay, new core competencies. So why this webinar? All right, it's pretty obvious. We've learned a lot about how our businesses work the past couple years. We need to absorb those lessons and we need to apply them going forward. I want to try and bring them all to you here right now, or as many of them as I can. In this past surge, at least in the US, where we've had a business surge in the spring, I saw a lot of old habits start to creep back in. A lot of panic, a lot of make do, a lot of reactive behaviors. And the tendency was to go back to the way that we've always done that and wondering if you should stay there. And I'm telling you, no, don't. There's good reasons why we don't want to go back to 2019. And there are things that we need to be doing now so that the next surge, whatever it may look like, won't be as difficult to process. I'm going to put this back out there again, that 20% net profit should be normal. 20% net profit should be normal, not this 1% and 2% stuff that you're doing. And I realize that a lot of you have corporations that are set up where you've got to pass the taxes on to the owner, so you need a low net profit. When you normalize your profit, you should be shooting for 20%. The level of risk that you're in dictates that you should have that high of a return. If you actually want a good value for your business, if you ever sell it, if you want to not have to change careers to put your money someplace better, let's make some money. Now's the time to commit to that. And we're going to talk about where you need to start with all of this. So, like I said, I've been in this for a really long time. So the good old days, right? In the good old days, we bought gear. Gear was 100% of, we took 100% of our depreciation every year. We reinvested that in new equipment. If we were growing, we took 10% of our revenue growth. We also reinvested that into equipment. You could be spending a lot of money on equipment every year and hoping that your business would continue to grow so that you could justify that expense. And that was the model, right? If we didn't have cash, we borrowed the money, we leased equipment whenever we could because we had no cash available. which was very common because, well, one, you're servicing loans, and two, you're running a very fast-paced business. And sometimes we forget to maybe collect the money. Sometimes we don't make enough profit to give us the cash so that we can buy things with cash. We told people to keep sub-rentals below 10% of revenue, which means buy more gear, reduce your cost of goods sold. Same thing with show crew. We kept 80% of our show crew was on staff because we wanted to control that cost. We wanted to make sure that every job was profitable when we sold it, and not go outside to get anything because that was money you were just giving away. And we tried to keep our cost of goods sold below 20%, overall for the entire year. How in the world do you do that? What we got out of this was a lot of companies that ran on break even, and they were building a equity in their business, hoping that some day down the road, it would be worth something. But let's think about this for a second. Your equipment has a life. It might be 3 years, 4 years, even 10 years. And if you're basically replacing 20% of your equipment every year, okay, you're going to run out of, that you're going to have some very old equipment down the road that's not worth anything, but you've invested a lot of money into, and the company is not growing and it's not making money. So that kicking the can down the road theory did not work out well for us. So we've got some new priorities, right? And which means that we've got to change the way that we do some things, hence this entire webinar, right? We want to sub-rent as much show gear as we can. We want to own what makes sense to own, but what makes sense to own has changed. Okay. We want to own production gear. We want to own gear that uses the intellect of your business that you can charge a really high price for, that solves very valuable problems. But the gear that's actually going into the ballroom doesn't solve a valuable problem. It saves you some money in the short term. It's job cost mentality, right? We want to outsource a lot more of our show crew. I grew up in theater. There are no full-time theater technicians, or very few full-time theater technicians. 80% of all crew is outsourced. 80% of all the workers in a venue, in a theatrical venue, are outsourced, okay? This is normal in other industries. It should be normal in ours as well. We need to learn to pay cash for everything, right? Debt's not a good thing. In a high-risk business, that debt makes you even more risky. So we want to reduce the amount of debt that we're carrying. And then who cares what your cost of goods sold is? That's the wrong way to think about it. Am I making the 20% net profit I need to make? If your cost of goods sold is 80% and you're making 20% net profit, that means you have no overhead, which means you're 100% scalable, which is impossible. But imagine the possibilities. Everything you sell is profitable. Oh, man, wouldn't that be cool? So new priorities going forward. So let's take a look at what the 10 I'm going to talk about today. And I'll be honest with you, 10 of these, I could have done a webinar on each and every one, and some of them have already been slotted into my marketing calendar to become webinars here going forward because they need a lot more attention. So very quickly, we need to quote profitably every time. We need to know how to quote profitably. We need to know how to control costs. It's changed. We need to be better at getting paid. Okay. We need to understand what our value proposition is, because that's where we create profit. We need to spend more time focusing on the ideal customer. This has to be a core competency. Not all revenue is good. Not all customers are good, right? We have to learn to reserve capacity for our best customers. Okay. We got to negotiate better. I mean, that's not new, but the way that we negotiate and what we have to negotiate with has changed recently, and this is very important. Listening has always been a very important skill, but listening has new meaning now in terms of how we evaluate the opportunities that are in front of us. The balance sheet, that part of your income statement that you never look at, the balance sheet, it matters now. We need to spend some more time in there. We need to become experts at our balance sheets, and we've got to become really good at turning down business. I will tell you, at Infocom last month, obviously ran into a lot of old friends and colleagues. And I think to a person, they all said that they had turned down more business in the past 2 or 3 months than they had in their entire careers. And it was obviously painful. It's painful for many of you to turn down business. So we need to get better at it, right? We've got to embrace this. We've got to use this muscle more effectively. So we'll talk about that today as well. Now, like I said, any one of these could be an all-day thing, right? So let's. I'm gonna hit the highlights, and trust me, there'll be more stuff down the road. But please post questions anytime at all. I'll answer them real time if I can. I'll catch up with them at the end. You're always welcome to email me afterwards and do a follow-up question with me. Right. So we've got to quote profitably. And many of these, matter of fact, all of these things I'm talking about today are things that are coming up regularly in my conversations with my regular clients, my coaching clients who I talk to, most of them every single week. And these are the things that they're bringing to me. And I'm going, okay, here's an example of where we're not using the tools that we have at our disposal, or we need to use them better, right? Tools for quoting profitably, here are the fundamentals. You need to know what replacement cost is because it affects the price that you put forward, okay? Replacement cost matters to you because it gives you a cost basis upon which you can add margin to make sure that you're going to make money off of this transaction, okay? When you add margin, we don't add the same margin on everything across the board. We add margin commensurate in step with the risk that you're absorbing and the amount of value it delivers to the customer. If you have something that is extremely high risk, but has very little value to the customer, you might want to ask yourself why you're actually doing it. There's value in there, but the risk dictates a margin. Value to the customer dictates a margin. If you have something that's very valuable to the customer and very risky, margins are up here, okay? Embrace that. When you think markup is what you do when you're just charging somebody for the cost of processing a transaction. For instance, we might mark up travel expenses. We're charging the customer for processing travel expenses. We're going to be your bank for 30, 60, 90 days, whatever that may be. And we're going to do some administrative work. And that's what a markup charges. Markup does not apply to any of your core services. You do not mark up rental equipment. You do not mark up people. You present value and you sell value. And in order for you to quote profitably, you have to write a clear scope of work and you have to stick to it because there's no point in quoting profitably if you then just turn around and over deliver, right? Now, as we move through that, we realize, well, another part of this 20% formula is that we've got to control our costs, right? So here are some of the tools that we're using regularly, and we're trying to master these tools to control our costs. First, more effective project managers. I have more job descriptions for project managers on my computer than you could possibly imagine, and they're all different and they're mostly wrong, right? So what we define as project management, and I'm sure I've written a blog post about this in the past few weeks, or it's coming out very, very soon. The project manager's job is to take the thing that was sold and control the gross profit of it through the process of delivering. Not over delivering is the project manager's job. In many of your organizations, your over delivery is actually coming from the project manager, which means they don't actually understand what their job is. So we have to master effective project management, make sure that we understand what it is and what it does and how it creates value for the customer while it is controlling costs for the employer. You have to become an expert on procurement. If everybody in your company does subrentals and everybody books labor and everybody books travel, then you have no experts at procurement. What you have is 6 or 8 or 10 different ways of doing it with different value systems, different sensibilities, different processes. Centralizing any procurement activity, whether it's booking travel, logistics, hiring labor, booking subrentals, any of those things requires expertise. They're specialized. You can do it better. And if you do it better, it costs you less money. You have better information. It's more reliable. It's wonderful. Okay? Don't buy gear because you think you can rent it. Assess what you have, decide whether you need to rent something from somebody else or you need to own it. When you're doing this, ignore job costs. Don't say, well, on this job will pay for 30% of that, so I should just buy it. That's our rule of thumb. That's a horrible rule of thumb. Show me 10 jobs that are going to pay for it and that you're getting 150% return on it, and it's a slam dunk, make the purchase, provided you think there's going to be another 10 jobs after that. So ignore the job costs, focus on the value to the business over an extended period of time, not the cost recovery on an individual job or even several individual jobs strung together. Because I guarantee you, as soon as you do that, the job you were counting on is going to cancel or drop that element. How many of you have ordered an LED wall and then had to show that you were buying it for cancel or change, right? And then deeper labor bench. Boy, how this was a very painful lesson over the past 3 months, right? We need a deeper labor bench. And the key to building a deeper labor bench and controlling your costs is to hire the best, not the cheapest. Hiring cheaper people trying to save money on labor will cost you more money in the long run. We all got to that point where we were hiring probably not the cream of the crop folks over the past few months. And we're reminded of why we like to hire better people. And we were hiring not the cream of the crop, but we were paying cream of the crop pricing and then muttering about, their professionalism or responsibility. Well, I'm sorry. You were picking from the bottom of the barrel. How professional did you expect them to be? So we'll never have, if we have extreme demand, we'll never have enough labor supply because that is always going to be our primary constraint. But the deeper your bench, the more insight you'll have into availability, the more control you'll have over people that you can book and schedule, the sooner you'll know that you need to start telling customers no, right? That will save you a fortune. Getting paid. I think we're better about getting paid. I mean, when I started doing this 15 years ago, getting paid was a huge issue, right? We have a lot more tools for getting paid now. Electronic payments are much far advanced. It's so much easier to move money almost frictionless through the system. But I also run into a lot of people who still don't expect to be paid. They expect the customer to take a long time. They're not asking for the money. They think it's unfair to get a deposit. They're extending credit where credit should not be extended. So step number one, look in the mirror, look at yourself and say, you deserve to be paid. Always ask for the money. You can negotiate to a different number. Always ask for the money. Require payments for confirmation of reservation. Do not confirm an order without a transaction. Those days are gone, okay? We're even seeing it in restaurants now. There are restaurants that are charging you for your reservation. You put your credit card down, they're going to charge you $50, whether you buy a cup of coffee or don't show up or come in and order a $500 dinner, in which case your $50 applies, right? Always require a payment for confirmation. This is non-refundable. The value is in the reservation. The value is in your availability, right? Lead with value. The value is, yes, we can do this. Yes, we have the resources for this. Yes, I have people that I can get scheduled on this. I can say yes. That's extremely valuable right now. Get a frictionless online payment system. There's thousands of them out there. Quit dawdling about this. Quit worrying about transaction fees. Who cares about credit card fees? Okay. Get your money. Can you not charge 3% more? Heck, you can charge 10 or even 20% more than you've been charging. Do it and quit worrying about what a credit card fee costs or transaction fee or forcing your client to do a wire transfer or ACH that they don't want to do, or the person you're dealing with doesn't have the authority to do that. Quit making it so hard to get paid. Getting paid is your problem. All you want them to do is execute the transaction, make it easy for them. All right, value proposition. This is a tough one. It's always a tough one, right? We're not all in marketing. This is not what we live and breathe. We didn't get in business to do marketing and talk about things like brand and value proposition. But in order to sell value, in order to lead with the thing that's going to make you money on the next deal, to put it at the top of your proposal instead of buried in the line items, which is what you do with your value, okay, you need to know what it is, right? And I can have 5 companies that all look exactly the same, but all have different value propositions. So think about yourself. Take a little reflection time. Knock this around with the team at lunch. Ask yourself, what service that you do for your customers that if you took it away, they'd go shop somewhere else? Okay. Is it, and then ask yourself the hard question, is it free? Is it the free project management? If it's a free thing that you're giving away that customers value, then the customer doesn't value you. They value the free thing. So think about the things that are valuable. Well, I love my team. I love my project manager. Great. Specific people are worth more, so charge more for them. Oh, I got to have Gary on the show. Great. I can get you Gary, but I've got to book him now. I've got to send you a bill for it, and I'm going to charge you more than no name, no blame person that I would otherwise put in here. I got 10 people who can do this job. You want Gary? This is what Gary costs. Okay. I've got other clients that want Gary too, right? This is where value is created. Okay. You have organization, you have refinement. What if your cases were all dirty? Would people think less of you? Is that something that's valuable for them? Are you organized? You communicate extremely well. Well, yes, here's the process. When you engage us, here's what's going to happen. Here's the meetings that we're going to have. Here's the information we're going to give back to you. You lead with all of these things before you even tell them what the price is, because that's what makes it worth the price. So finding your value proposition and leading with it is a core competency. Now, also think about if you were raising your prices and you're losing customers by raising your prices, that means that they can't see your value. So when people tell me, oh, we can't raise our prices, our clients are pushed back. Oh, clients won't pay more for that. What you're telling me is that you have not led with any value at all. Okay. That you have cultured and cultivated price shopping customers, that your value proposition is that you're cheap. And none of you ever described to me, oh, yeah, we're the cheapest in the market. That's why people come to us. Well, one of you has, but most of you don't want to be that player. So quit acting like it. So leveraging your value is the key to growth and profit. Leading with a higher value, okay, will get you there faster. So understand what your value proposition actually is, and pay attention to if it changes or evolves or starts trending in another direction, because that's telling you something important about where the money is going. Follow the money, okay? If the demands of clients change, okay, their value expectation changes, we need to shift our response so that we're maximizing the value for our ideal customer. Speaking of ideal customers, oh my goodness. Here's how you define it, right? And I do this, my clients know we do this exercise at the very beginning. You have a customer right now that you like more than anybody else. You wish all your customers were like this customer. You've already formed a name in your head. Look around the room, whoever you're watching this with, you all probably have the same name, 1 or 2 people that fall into this category. What do you like about them? Well, they treat us well. They give us information in advance. They pay their bill quickly. They feed the crew on site. They're flexible about what we provide them. Make that list, because those are the qualities you want more of, and there are more ideal customers out there. Okay, so list the likable qualities. Are there any qualities that you like that are missing? For instance, if one of you named this client, another of you named another client, okay, what's the non-overlapping items? What are the qualities of this other client that this client doesn't have? Let's add that to the list. Why not have an even better client? I went through this exercise with one of my clients, and we ran into that conflict where they basically had 2 or 3 ideal clients, but none of them were individually as good as each other. So of the shared qualities, there were very few. There were a lot of qualities that were only in one of the three customers. So we created this amalgamation, this consolidation of the qualities that were important to them, and found that they had no single customer that met that criteria. In fact, they'd never considered that that was even an option. Now, the good news is, with a little bit of effort, they were actually able to make two of those clients change their behavior a little bit and make a few adjustments, which they were surprisingly amenable to, and made them better clients. But they were also able to go out and have better conversations. Their business development person went out and changed the types of conversations they were having so that he could bring in better prospects, right? So eliminate anyone with less than 50% of the ideal qualities that you're looking for, right? Now, we don't just fire them. We de-emphasize them. It's much, much simpler and it's much less personal, right? De-emphasizing means you negotiate as flexibly. You charge them a higher price. You eliminate some of their freebies. You hold to your terms and conditions. You ask for a deposit when they're used to paying you in 75 days. All of those things will de-emphasize their importance to you as a customer. Either they will change and adapt and go, oh man, I can't go find somebody else. I better give these guys what they want. Or they will move on, which will free up your capacity for more of your ideal customers who right now, you're so busy, you don't even have time to talk to the people who you should be talking to. So it starts with figuring out and keeping track of your ideal customer. Major core competency that we have to deal with. All right. Once you know who your ideal customer is, and trust me, they have work all year. They don't have one job a year. Your ideal customer has work all the time, right? Several times a year, recurring work, different types of work, different levels of work. They have big events, they have small events, they have tours, they have one-offs. They call you for everything. That's going to be your ideal customer, okay? Your job is to reserve capacity for them. It's not just knowing what their schedule is and when they generally have jobs. It's knowing that I can't sell 110% of my capacity because if my best customer calls, I still have to service them because you can't turn away your best customer, right? So if you know that there's a chance that your best customer is going to come to you, why would you ever sell everything out? Why would you not hold back a little bit of capacity for them so that you can say yes and retain them? So avoid empty revenue, right? This is the key. Oh, we have extra revenue. This is extra revenue. We can sell this. This is a non-core customer, but hey, we're not doing anything. We should just take it. That empty revenue, those empty calories, they feel good right now, okay? But they don't take care of your core customer. Even if you sold nothing, the time and energy that you used on non-core business could have been used to further develop solutions, engagement, have conversations, and do strategy with your core customers. And remember, you do courtesy B2B rentals. That's great. I used to do them too. They are a courtesy, okay? B2B rentals, sub-rentals to another company, helping out a competitor in a pinch, they're not important. If you say yes to the job, you treat it like a job, you treat it like it's important, you do your best work, but that is not part of your business plan, right? We help people out when we can, but you're not obligated to help out your B2B clients, right? Unless you're a pure play B2B company, in which case they are your only clients. Your value proposition, once you reserve capacity, your value proposition to your best customers is that capacity. The right buyer cares that you're going to be able to say yes to their last minute request, which makes you more valuable to them. Scarcity is sexy, right? And saving that for the right buyer really impresses folks. So make sure your terms and conditions reflect that too. I think I'll talk about that again in a minute. So negotiating better. In the past 15 years, I've been doing the consulting. I talk about negotiating a lot. I talk about putting terms and conditions in there that give you the opportunity to negotiate. But in fact, we were doing it as an afterthought. We need to do it as a core competency. This is very important to our future. New orders, never negotiate price. You can adjust to the customer's budget, but that's not negotiating price. The customer says, well, you said it cost 80, I've only got 60. Okay, if you can pay us in advance, we can do it for 60. That's not really negotiating anymore, okay? That's just leveraging a term. Negotiating says, here's what we can do for 60, okay? Adjust your scope, right? Never negotiate price. It didn't become less valuable because the customer says they didn't have more money. The fact is, money is a choice. Availability of budget is a choice. It is never a finite constraint. It is never black and white. Anybody who says, I cannot go a penny above this is not telling you the truth. It has to be important enough that they're willing to advocate for going a little bit higher. But it also has to be important enough that they're willing to stick to the budget and take your recommendations about how to use that budget wisely, which is exactly what your best customer would do. So terms and conditions will still have value, but you have to enforce them. You have to have decision deadlines, which, oh, by the way, are much shorter than they ever were before. 100% of your proposals have to have an expiration date on them. Deposits are absolute, okay? You can call them fees, you can call them, costs, but the fact is you need to be getting money all through the life of the project, starting with the confirmation. Final payments also are non-negotiable, okay? This is when they are due. Expect to get paid. Act like that is normal. Nobody leaves a restaurant and says, oh, that was a great dinner. I'm going to give you guys a great tip, but I'm going to go home. I'll come back in a couple of weeks and I'll pay my bill. Yet this is the conversation that we have at the end of a show that we haven't been paid for. Why are other industries able to do it? Is it the size of the transaction? Is it the power of the buyer? No, it's the fact that restaurants have created the expectation that you pay before you leave. You can create that expectation as well. Listening. Listening is always important. Listening is a great sales tool. It's a great leadership tool. It's a great management tool. There's some simple skills that you can build upon and practice that will leverage your ability to listen. For instance, active listening is very important. What I'm hearing you say is, Tom, that if we repeat back what the customer just said to verify that we understood them correctly and to make them feel like they're being listened to, that might increase our value to them. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Right? Whenever possible, you're listening, use your customer words in your proposals. I look at your proposals all the time. They're full of your words. Right? They're not full of the client's words. What has more value? The client's words have value to them. Your words don't necessarily mean anything to them. So when possible, use the words that the client uses. We had a client, I can't even remember what he called it. We had a client had a really goofy name. Oh, I remember what it was. We had a recordable laser disc that we used in shows to play back slides. This is a back in the day story. And our client called it the worm, which was write once, read many. And he called it a worm. We called it whatever the product name was. It was our language, but he wanted to call it a worm. And he got really upset if we put anything other on our proposal other than worm, because worm is what he understood. This is a valuable lesson to me. This was a very loyal client. He wasn't the perfect client. He was a bit of a jerk, hence telling us how our proposal should look. But the fact is, he was very loyal. He came to us first. He didn't squawk about price. Doesn't mean he didn't test it. He didn't challenge it. Always paid his bill, and he fed the crew. What more could you ask? Use the customer's words. It won't kill you. If you listen to the customer, they will tell you what their needs and goals are. They will even mention their preferences. Use that, not against them. Use that for them. Advocate for them based on the things they've told you. Well, you told me this was important. So the reason we're doing this way is because you laid out these things and you said these things were important. Now, mirroring would say, well, so what I'm hearing you say is that your needs have changed. Tell me more about what's important now, right? See how all this works? Listening is a powerful tool. And then meet the buyer where they are emotionally, psychologically, technically. Not everybody comes in knowing what they want or need. Okay. If your process isn't flexible enough, or the people in your process that are interfacing with the client at that vulnerable moment when they're asking if you could do something for them, like generate a quote, okay, then we are not meeting the customer where they are. Okay, you need to put the right people and the right skills in front of customers so that we can listen and adjust our response to their moment where they're at. This is what your best customer wants from you. This will be a loyal customer. This will be a customer who will let you make a lot more money because they're going to pay for your value. Okay? And this works, trust me, I know what you're thinking. Oh, we're production rental. We work with lighting designers and TDs and things like that, and they have no souls. Yes, they do, right? I've worked with all types of customers. All of this applies to every customer I've ever worked with. So try it. Listening is very important. If you're not a good listener, find a different job, work at a different part of the process, get your boss to replace you with somebody who's a better listener, because that's an important part of the selling process. Balance sheet. Yeah, the least loved and probably least understood financial statement. And to be fair, it makes no sense. I mean, there's positives and negatives, and how does it always balance? I mean, it does. I took finance in grad school. I'm a smart guy. I figure a lot of stuff out. I still don't understand balance sheets correctly. Okay, I don't understand them like a true balance sheet person does, but I've devoted a lot of time and energy to them in the past 15 years. Learn to love your balance sheet because there's valuable information there. It is now the first thing I look at when I start assessing a client, okay? Remember, the riskier your business, the less debt you can afford. Think about how risky you are in terms of other businesses that you encounter. We are in an extremely risky industry that traditionally loves debt, okay? And because we love debt so much, we didn't make any money. Risky business, lots of debt, no profit, not funding the owner's retirement. This is not a great combination. This is why we've lost a lot of people in the industry over the past couple of years. Remember that cash is king. Okay, the fun part of your balance sheet is right there at the top. It's the cash on hand followed by the receivables. That's real money that you can do something with. So work on getting paid, keep cash in reserve, repeat that process over and over and over again. All right. Avoiding loans and leases, that bottom half of your spreadsheet, buy your inventory from cash flow. The reason we love the top of the balance sheet is because that's the money we can buy new equipment with. If you can get 12 months, same as cash terms from a manufacturer, that's not a loan. That's just delayed payment, right? So take that opportunity, negotiate in that vein, but it keeps you from going to the bank. It's just a payable on your balance sheet now. It's not a debt, okay? So bankers look at it differently. When you do actually need to buy money, borrow money, they will treat that payable differently than they would treat long-term debt or leases that are on your balance sheet, okay? And then avoid, we're past the era. I grew up in the era of speculative purchases. You know, the go-go 90s, oh my goodness, we spent millions and millions of dollars on things that we just knew if we had it, we would do okay with it, but it was speculative, okay? And there's a few things we bought. I spent $100,000 on some early generation scaling products that scaled computer images to give you a dissolvable NTSC signal. I think I used them, we ended up using them on one show, maybe two shows before they were absolutely obsolete. You know, bought a $250,000 switcher. We probably used it for maybe part of a year before it was a boat anchor. So I've made speculative purchases. I would not make those purchases now. I can justify them back then. They won us some big clients. They pushed us up into the big leagues. They made us look like a player. Nobody needs to do that now. Get rid of that idea. Always figure in the actual cost of ownership and the life of that inventory before you start dropping big money like that. So turning down business. Wow, what a novel idea, isn't it? It was kind of fun, right? Sometimes there's some people you really enjoyed turning down. There's some people you didn't like turning down at all, right? We can get better at turning down business. And in fact, even if you are not at capacity, you have to turn down business. You should turn down business. One, because it's not as profitable as you need to be, the risk is too high, or you need to reserve capacity for better clients. I was notorious, the company I worked at, if one of our competitors or friendly competitors, suppliers, wholesalers, if they called us and said, hey, can we rent this thing from you in 90 days? We got a big project. I didn't even bother to check to see if it was reserved on anything. The answer was always no. Okay, I'm holding that back. I didn't explain it this way. I said, right now I've got a schedule on shows. I'm overlapping. Actually, I'm probably short one. Okay. But you know what? If you want to call me back 2 weeks out, if you still haven't solved your problem, I'll look at it again. Okay. Reserve your capacity for your best customers. Help anybody out in an emergency. 3 months out is not an emergency. All right. So turning down business, dynamic pricing. Okay. You don't have a price list. Your clients ask for them all the time. I've heard it 3 times this week. You don't actually have a price list. Okay. Your price is going to change based on the season. Here's our standard rate, but call me in July or call me in December or call me in October. I'm going to give you a different price. Pricing changes. So even your best customers pay according to the season, according to how much demand is out there, how busy you expect to be. Your best clients don't care. They expect you to be more expensive. They're in the travel industry, for goodness sake. They know the airfare, hotel, rental cars all go up during busy season. Why wouldn't you go up too? Change your terms by season also. Okay, there are times of year where you can accept payment later. You can take a smaller reservation fee, or you can delay the reservation fee. Okay, busier periods have shorter confirmation windows and they have shorter payment terms. Okay, when you're slower, you can be a little bit more flexible about that, right? So you're doing your customer a favor. Will this help you out? I can delay this. I can postpone this. I know you're on vacation next week. We can wait until you get back until we take care of that. Okay, you're delivering value to your customer that way. And then, of course, turning business down is favor customers that buy all of your services. If somebody calls up, and most of you are audio, video, lighting, staging, rigging, drape, scenery companies, full service production companies. And if you have a client that only calls you for lighting or only calls you for LED, which has become very common, favor the customers who buy everything from you over those customers. Say, I'd love, I know my LED wall is going to be busy in October. I can't promise it to you on this gig if all you're getting from us is LED. Can I quote on your entire project? At least ask the question. Favor customers that value you rather than a product that happens to be sitting in your warehouse. They value all of your services rather than they think your video editor is really great. They just want to edit some videos for them. They're going to have somebody else do the production. No. Favor customers that buy all of your services. And then your capacity reserves will tell you who to turn down, right? Okay, when you say we're out of capacity for this particular project, you're not slamming the door in their face. Okay, you're letting them know that there is criteria, and maybe you need to have a conversation about that. And if they say, well, why isn't it available for us? I said, to be honest with you, I've got quotes out to 3 customers who buy the entire package and you're only buying a piece of it. Or, you consistently confirm very late. I can't keep an order open that long. You've been late on your payments for the past 3 years. I'm prioritizing clients that pay according to terms. Any one of those things will either develop a better relationship or free up your time for better customers. So to summarize this, and it'd be time to start thinking about the questions that you might have here. The things that you need to be an expert at now are not really show things. I didn't talk anything about how to do a show. You guys are already experts at doing shows. Okay? Your customers expect you to be an expert at doing shows. That's entry level. That's the ante. I'm talking about things that will actually make a huge difference in your business. Being bad at doing shows, you're still going to have business. There's plenty of companies out there that aren't very good at it that seem to get business. But if you will focus on the 10 things that I just talked about, you will have better customers. You will take better care of them. You'll make more money. You'll get paid sooner. You'll enjoy your life more. You won't be as stressed out. You won't spend as much time chasing your tail. Okay. It'll be easier to work with good people because you have a great supply chain in your labor pool. The benefits just go on and on and on. So if you want that ideal world, okay, work on the skills that world demands. That's what I'm talking about. So open up some questions, post anything that you have. I guess the chat is somehow disabled, but I see that the Q&A works, so feel free to put something into the Q&A. And I have no idea what's going on with the chat, so there you go. All questions, okay. There it is. And all right. For those of you who have not talked to me for a while, it's probably time to talk to me. My calendar, my dance card is filling up, as we say. So let's have an honest conversation about where you're at and where you want to be, figure out what your goals are, see what we can do to get you there faster, decide when you want to get started, how we can work together. It costs you nothing to have the conversation. I'd love to hear from you regardless. You may not hire me now, you may hire me later. I just signed a client who I talked to a little over a year ago, and they finally came back and said, okay, now it's time. And the nice thing about clients like that is that they were ready to get started. So we're already working together from 1 week ago. So make that time, reach out, let's get caught up, and let's see what we can do for you guys. Another announcement, my marketing people didn't even know I put this in here. I am starting another coaching group. We started some coaching groups back at the beginning of the pandemic as a stopgap to help people process everything they were going through with their peers. I still have about 10 of those people in groups, but I want to start a new group for folks who are trying to learn best practices, trying to apply themselves differently, try and take advantage of the trends that they see coming forward. It's time to make some changes. This is my entry-level offer. This is the least expensive way to get access to me and work with a great bunch of peers who all have shared experiences, but they all have unique contributions. The peer program is fantastic. It's one of the best things that we've ever put together. I'm starting a group now. You can book an introductory call with me, shoot me an email, love to talk about it. And that group we're probably going to have our first meeting in the next 4 weeks. So feel free to jump on board. Next month, speaking of big topics and big webinars, the art and science of quoting projects profitably. We've had a lot of opportunities lately to quote different things, talking to different kinds of buyers, people who aren't used to seeing our old line item quotes or even our line muted quotes generated out of our rental management system, which is, come on guys, that's so 2010. We need to be able to quote projects profitably and then also present them with a high amount of value. And I'm going to try and marry those two things in next month's webinar. We have to show the value. Budgeting is the science, presenting is the art. This will be a great webinar. I can't wait to give it to you. Good stuff. So, questions. All right, I'm not generating a lot of questions here, which either means I was so brilliant that I answered all of your questions, or I was completely irrelevant. You guys are still here. Come on, I'm going to hang out here for a second. Throw a good question at me. Okay. The question is about, what do you do? I don't know how you guys have time to type this much sometimes. Okay, the gist of the question, let me summarize the question. And I'm also hearing this in my coaching calls. We're getting a lot of clients who are saying things are too expensive. We sent you the quote, oh, that's just too much money. Well, you know me, we've talked about this before. That's a single level objection. You say, yes, it is a lot of money. We're not getting enough information out of this. But I'm seeing a trend that we're hearing this a little bit more often than we were hearing it 3 months ago, where people were grateful to actually get somebody on the phone to even consider taking on their project. So now we're seeing a little price pushback. I had a client share a story that their client was saying, yeah, corporate has told us that we need to, cut back on travel and really watch our money. I think they're worried about the recession. That type of anecdotal evidence is not necessarily an indicator that things are turning in the wrong direction. It's an indicator that we have to be more explicit about what we do and why we do it and where things are valuable. So I take these messages as an opportunity to really hone in on what our message is and do a better job of listening. I don't know how many times I say it a week, but it's quite a few. We need to be absolutely agnostic about what the client's budget is. Their budget is their budget. We don't care what the budget is. You can't sell them the show that you want to do. You have to sell them the show that fits in their budget, that meets their needs, right? And sometimes these things are way, 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 way far apart. So going back to that listening thing, and I don't care if you have to ask 5 times what their budget is. If they don't tell you what their budget is, you're not asking it the right way. Change the way that you're asking. So what I find is the most effective way to get somebody's budget out of them is to give them examples. I said, here's an example of a job, and never give them a single price, always give them a range. I said, typically, if we're going to do a sales meeting, a regional sales meeting in this ballroom for 250 people on a one-day event, workshop style, this is a $25,000 order or $25,000 to $30,000 order. And they say, well, what's the difference between 25 and 30? It really has to do on the fit and finish of the job, how much flexibility you want, how much technology you actually need to pull it off. Okay. But it's probably not going to be less than 25. Well, we only have 15. I say, great. Here's what a $15,000 version of that job is. Okay. Because you just got the budget out of them. The fact is, every single person you talk to has a budget in their head, and you haven't asked the right questions to get out. All right. Another question talk about how you determine capacity. Okay. When you're looking at capacity, and if your core competency is doing events, okay, people, production management, labor, equipment, technology, solutions, maybe some content, your capacity is your tightest constraint. Whatever constraint that's going to kick in first, right now it is probably labor. When you run out of labor, you can't sell anymore. You're not going to run out of equipment. There is more equipment in our marketplace than we could ever possibly do shows. You may have to look a little farther. You may have to truck it a little bit further, but there's equipment out there. So your constraint is almost always going to be labor. It might be a specific kind of labor, which means you have other capacity, but you don't have capacity to do this, which means that you need to check your outsourcing. So you may be out of internal capacity, but are you out of external capacity? So if I can get the external capacity and it helps me utilize my internal capacity, I'm not out of capacity, right? So take a look at the things where you start to see that you're going to have to make uncomfortable compromises on the quality of your work, or literally not have a single yes left in you, which some of you saw in May and June. But right now, I'm going to say it's more than likely going to be labor. Outlook for 2023. I am not one of the people that think there's a big recession on the horizon. Whatever there might be, I think it's going to be relatively minor. I watch my clients' pipelines very closely. I'm seeing pretty good confirmations through Q1 of next year, which is about as far as I really want to look right now. Come September, we're going to be looking at Q2 of next year. But based on what I'm seeing, there's plenty of activity going in there. I've got many clients whose calendars are very full through the end of the year into next year. So I feel pretty good about 2023. That doesn't mean that our clients' needs won't change. That doesn't mean their budgets won't be altered. Okay. But that doesn't mean that things are just going to crawl to a halt. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. But in all of my advice now, because we are in such a risky business, I tend to give more conservative advice. I wouldn't run out and hire people based on the job that you're going to do next February. If I have a specific piece of equipment that I was going to buy anyway, and the job in February uses it, you probably should order it now, because with the supply chain delays, there's still a coin flip whether you're even going to get it by February. So would I be lining up the sub-rental version of that or the alternative version of that? Yeah, I would probably do that. So I'm feeling pretty good about 2023, but I'm also going to be very careful about not overcommitting capital and capacity and overhiring, increasing my overhead. What would you suggest are the top 3 to 5 characteristics to hear from a client when we're actively listening? How would you suggest we respond to them? Okay, that's a how long is a piece of string question. There's a lot of stuff in there. First of all, if you want to listen, get good at asking questions. So ask questions. Tell me more about this. My favorite request is help me understand. Help me understand why that's important. Help me understand why you ask. Tell me about what happened last time that you did this. Okay. Look for things that are going to elicit more information. Agreeing with someone and shutting up will often get you more information. That's another great part of listening. Just going, yeah. People will just keep talking. So, if they're not giving you a budget, to say, what was your budget last year? What was your budget the last time you did it? Well, that was completely different. Tell me about it anyway. What did you like about it? So there's a lot of things you can have, conversations that you can have if you will detach yourself, and this is the key, and probably where I would have started. If you will detach yourself from what it is that you think that you want to do for the person on the other end of the phone or on the other side of the conversation, if you will let that go, the right questions will come to you. Too often we are hung up on what it is that we think we want to do, that we can't focus on the question of what could it possibly be. So thank you for prompting that. That turned out to be a good question after all. Do you anticipate any adjustments in volume in 2023 relative to I definitely think 2023 is going to be bigger overall. I mean, if I were budgeting the industry, I would say overall, I would probably be budgeting 10% growth, but your individual results may vary. All right. We see demand has come up, but we just had a surge in demand, and that surge in demand was spending a lot of money kind of wildly. And now we're going back and say, oh, maybe we do need to spend our money more wisely. Maybe we do need to think more strategically. But I think the gates are open, in the U.S. And I realize that, my clients in Canada, you're 3 or 6 months behind on our experience right now, because you're booking hybrid shows in the fall. And you may or may not have the same kind of surge that we just had, which was almost all in-person shows and very little virtual shows. So I think there's plenty of opportunity out there, but the onus is on you to be better at selling, better at listening, better at identifying the perfect customer for you. And one last question. Okay, Tom, you mentioned you have a stack of project manager job descriptions. What are some of the mistakes, oversights you're seeing in those? The fact that they are describing an entire project management process, that's probably 3 or 4 people's jobs, and they're putting it all on one person. So that's the biggest mistake I see in project management job descriptions, is they're all encompassing. They create basically a job where that person can only work on one job at a time, because they're having to do so many things. The other thing I see in project manager job descriptions is they're keeping us from centralizing services that would serve more people and make project managers more efficient, by expecting every project manager to have a skill set of a deep bench of labor pool and technicians that they know, their own supply chain, the ability to navigate Travelocity and book travel, a whole bunch of stuff where if we just focused on them managing the delivery of the show instead of all the admin work, we'd have much better project management outcomes, and it'd be much easier to find people to fill those roles. So, awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here. I enjoy it. I look forward to seeing you next month. And again, don't hesitate to send out any other questions that I may not have answered here today. I look forward to seeing you soon. Schedule a call with me. We need to catch up. We need to talk about your future. I'm booking clients for 2023. Now's the time to have that conversation. We got a lot of work ahead of us. And anyway, be well, keep cool. Talk to you soon.